I remember a time when every superhero movie seemed to get an official comic book adaptation made of it that would typically come out in the months following a film's release. While the notion of making one of these today would be strange and entirely redundant, back then, when the superhero movie genre was still in its infancy, with far fewer movies based on comics being made, it was far more acceptable and honestly kind of cool. In most cases, these comics would be written beforehand, using the screenplays of the films they were based on, so while they did carry over a lot of the same visuals and dialogue within them, some creative liberties would be taken in areas too, and scenes that may have been in the original script that were left on the cutting room floor would also be included. It was fun reading these comics to get a slightly different take on the films. They would offer a different perspective, and it was interesting comparing the possible strengths and weaknesses they may or may not have had against the movies they were based on. In past years, I have reviewed the official comic adaptations of Joel Schumacher's Batman Forever and Batman and Robin, and finally, I will be spending the next few weeks taking a look at the last two from the original Batman series, the one based on the 1989 film, as well as its 1992 sequel, Batman Returns, both directed by Tim Burton. I will also be finishing it all off with a review of the recently released Batman '89 limited series that continued the events of the Tim Burton Batman universe, written by the screenwriter of those first two movies, Sam Hamm, and implemented a few of the ideas that would have more than likely made their way into a third Batman film had Tim Burton stayed on as director. I'm really excited to talk about that one because it's essentially the third movie we never got to see. Much like all of these Batman film adaptations I've looked at, the one for the 1989 movie was written by the late Dennis O'Neil, and the artwork for this one was done by Jerry Ordway. The story begins with an audience in a movie theater enjoying their popcorn, sodas, and other necessary snacks needed to watch a film. My go-tos are usually peanut M&Ms, Starburst, or Twizzlers. How about you? The image of them all sitting there is overlaid with a film reel, depicting the first few moments of the Batman movie, as if we, the audience, are being sucked into the narrative about to unfold, transported directly to the streets of Gotham City. The opening of the comic is pretty simple, but quite effective at the same time. We see a couple and their son take a back alley shortcut before they are robbed by a couple of muggers, an event very reminiscent of the origin of Bruce Wayne, minus all of the death and loneliness, of course. The muggers count their loot on a nearby rooftop and discuss the mysterious circumstances surrounding the death of another criminal named Johnny Gobbs, with the one crook believing it was the rumored bat creature that got him. The other criminal denies it, believing the Batman is just a myth, that is, until the vigilante appears before them, taking out the one in the toque, and then holding the one wearing the cap over the edge of the rooftop. Instead of just saying, "I'm Batman," like in the film, the Caped Crusader intimidates the punk by calling him Rat Breath, and to tell the rest of his friends that he owns the night. As the police and paramedics tend to the injured criminals, loading them up into an ambulance, GCPD Lieutenant Max Eckhart is approached by Gotham Globe reporter Alexander Knox, who has been investigating the Batman story in Gotham. Eckhart refuses to comment, but back at the Globe, Knox is introduced to a photographer who had recently arrived in Gotham named Vicky Vale. She intends to take pictures of the supposed bat creature, and having been invited to a fundraiser held at the home of billionaire Bruce Wayne, she and Knox plan on going there to interview Police Commissioner James Gordon and ask him if the Batman really does exist. We cut to the headquarters of mob boss Carl Grissom, who has many of the GCPD officers, most notably Lieutenant Eckhart, on his payroll. Grissom sends his second-in-command, Jack Napier, to access chemicals, and tasks him in destroying any incriminating evidence against him there. Grissom secretly plans on double-crossing Napier, though, having him killed by police for sleeping with his mistress, Alicia. At Bruce Wayne's fundraiser event, Wayne is forced to leave his guests abruptly when the hidden cameras in his manor pick up a discreet conversation between Commissioner Gordon and one of his officers. There has been an anonymous tip sent in by Alicia that Axis Chemicals is being cleaned out by Napier and his men. Grissom had forced Alicia to throw her lover under the bus, a cruel little change this comic makes. It was Grissom who made the call in the film. At the plant, an unauthorized police operation is being conducted by Eckhart, and he orders his officers to shoot Napier on sight. Commissioner Gordon arrives and reverses that order, telling them to bring Napier in alive, or there'll be hell to pay. Batman reaches the plant and fights his way up to Napier. A bullet fired from the criminal's gun ricochets off Batman's cape and grazes Napier's face. Jack then plummets into a large vat of acid below the catwalk they were on. In the comic, Batman reaches out for Jack's hand, but is unable to grab hold in time, unlike in the movie when his grip weakens, which is why Napier eventually falls. The Dark Knight manages to evade police capture with the help of a few smoke pellets, and Commissioner Gordon orders his men to keep a lid on everything they just saw. Napier would survive his chemical bath and visit a cheap surgeon to have his disfigurement repaired. Unfortunately, the scarring is not just surface level. Not only does he now have an evil fixed grin, but a maniacal personality to boot. Calling himself the Joker, Napier confronts Grissom and murders him for selling him out to the cops. The blood on Grissom's newspaper is colored purplish pink and not red like in the film, which is pretty weak. Having taken over Grissom's operation, the Joker begins using the resources at Axis Chemicals to create a line of hygiene products using a deadly chemical called Smilex that kills anyone that comes in contact with it, causing them to laugh hysterically and give them a permanent grin, again and again. I always found a Joker's scheme here to be terrifying. Imagine day-to-day products like hairspray, makeup, body wash, and deodorant, among others, being contaminated like this. It's such an easy way to create panic and fear within a population. Vicky Vale had begun dating Bruce Wayne, and Joker takes an interest in her photography skills, but mostly just takes an interest in her, seeing her on television. Joker makes her believe that Wayne would meet her at the Flugelheim Museum, but decides to introduce himself to her instead, after killing all of the museum's patrons with toxic gas, of course. Because this is a comic book, just drawings on a page, we don't get the sequence where Joker and his goons deface the museum's art to Prince's Party Man. Yes, the scene is dated by today's standards, but man, is it entertaining. So zany. Bruce would learn of Joker's ruse and arrive at the museum as Batman to save Vicky. They get away in the gorgeous Batmobile from these Tim Burton movies, still my personal favorite, spanning all forms of media. A lot more dialogue between Batman and Vale happens on their way to the Batcave than what we saw in the film, and we see the use of a hologram to conceal the Batcave's entrance. I think in the movie it just lifts open quickly, if I recall. It's been a few years since I've seen it. Batman gives Vale a list of chemical products that the citizens of Gotham need to avoid. Each chemical contains a single component of Smilex, and when combined are fatal and untraceable. He then gasses Vicky and takes her home to her apartment. The next day, Bruce pays her a visit and tries to explain all of his recent disappearances. Before he can, though, Joker and his goons barge in, and Joker shoots Wayne point blank with his revolver, not before asking him the iconic question, "You ever dance with the devil by the pale moonlight?" which causes Bruce to hesitate. Bruce survives the gunshots, having concealed a serving tray under his jacket. I call bullshit on that. I have ever since I was a kid. Back in the Batcave, Bruce remembers the night his parents were murdered, and that the criminal had asked the very same question Joker had asked him at Vicky's apartment, making Jack Napier the man responsible for killing his parents. This was a highly controversial moment in the movie, and when I say controversial, I mean it really only pissed off the comic book fans, the minority audience, especially at the time. But I've never minded this aspect of the movie. It worked for the story it was telling. It strengthened the relationship between the hero and villain, and leaned into the idea that they both played a part in creating the other. Batman goes to Axis Chemicals and destroys the Smilex factory with the Batmobile's weapons. Joker and his gang infiltrate Gotham's bicentennial celebratory parade and rain money down on all those in attendance. The dollar bills have Joker's face on them, which is something he alludes to earlier in the film, but was something that was confusingly cut from the parade sequence upon the film's release. It's cool that we at least get to see it here. The true intentions of the Clown Prince of Crime become apparent. Using Smilex-filled balloons, he begins poisoning and killing the hundreds of Gothamites lining the street. Batman gets rid of the balloons using his Batplane, and in frustration, Joker kills his right-hand man, Bob. Poor Bob, Bob the Goon. Bastard never had a chance. Joker then pulls an extremely long-barreled revolver out of his trousers and downs the Batplane with one shot from it. The vehicle then crashes into the steps of the Gotham Cathedral. Joker takes Vicky Vale hostage and tells his men to have a chopper waiting for him when he reaches the top of the cathedral. We also see that Batman has survived the crash. It's going to take a lot more than that to finish him. When Joker reaches the belfry, he uses his acid flower to cause the main bell of the cathedral to fall and take out chunks of the stairway below, nearly hitting Batman. It also blocks off the GCPD from entering the building as well. Batman reaches the top of the cathedral and rather easily beats up all of the Joker's goons. The one guy he smashes head first into another church bell isn't clearly killed by the hero like in the film, but it's damn sure implied. Batman finally confronts the Joker, and we get the Duel of the Freaks on top of the cathedral. Batman uses the Joker's own Dance with the Devil line against him. The villain says Batman made him by dropping him into the vat of chemicals, but Batman says the Joker made him first. At that point, the Joker calls Batman childish, playing the blame game. Joker is punched off the edge of the cathedral, despite putting on a pair of spectacles, and seemingly falls, but instead grabs hold of Batman and Vale and pulls them over the edge as well. Joker's men arrive via helicopter and throw down a rope ladder for their boss to climb. He does so, but Batman manages to attach one of the gargoyles to Joker's leg, using what the media have started referring to as batarangs, this one being attached to a rope. I like that the comic actually gives them a name. The gargoyle detaches from the cathedral, and unable to bear the weight of it, the Joker lets go of the ladder and falls to his death. Something I like about this sequence in the comic is that it shows all three characters falling, like they are in slow motion, with Batman saving Vicky, smashing through one of the cathedral's windows, as the Joker continues to fall beyond them, to his demise. The police seemingly find the body of Batman lying alongside the Joker's, but it's revealed to just be his cape and cowl covering Alexander Knox that Batman had thrown down in order to escape the police. It's a really weird and unnecessary addition the comic makes, but one that was apparently in the film's original screenplay, which is why it was included here. I'm glad it was cut from the final film though. It doesn't make a whole lot of sense to have it. The following day, Commissioner Gordon addresses the rumors of a Batman in Gotham and reveals them to be true. He also received a letter from the vigilante stating his promise to protect the city. Whenever Gotham and its citizens need him, they can simply call him using his symbol. The official comic adaptation of the 1989 Batman film is one of the stronger ones I've looked at on the channel. It does a great job recreating many of the iconic moments from the movie, but of course it's nowhere near perfect. Like all of these film-to-comic adaptations, it feels very crammed in areas, and not everything carries over as effectively as it should. The music, timing, cinematography, the charm of the actors' performances themselves, they all play a vital role, and are something drawings on a page cannot achieve. I do like the slight redesign Jerry Ordway gives the Batsuit here. It's a solid recreation of the one used in the film, but also appears more functional and comic accurate at the same time. The areas around Batman's eyes aren't always in shadow, so you do see his skin tone at times, which looks kind of odd in a comic book, but I guess that was the only way to draw it and remain faithful to the movie. Something I do wish O'Neill did with this comic, though, was give Batman some sort of internal monologue we could read, especially when he goes to visit the death site of his parents. It would have given us more insight on his thoughts and feelings. This version of Batman from the 1989 film was written fairly simple. He was depicted as more of a symbol and spectacle than a three-dimensional person like the following films would treat him. Even Batman and Robin gave him more dialogue and more personality. I want to thank you very much for watching my comic book review today. There isn't a whole lot of substance to this one because it is just a retelling of a feature film, but let me know your thoughts on it, or even the movie itself, down in the comments section below. If you'd like to support the channel and ensure the creation of more content like this, you can do so by subscribing, hitting that bell icon for notifications, and by becoming a producer over on patreon.com for as little as $1 a month. I will see you all in the next one. Take care, and always stay nerdy. I've said it before, and I'll say it again. While I may not have been the most fond of Batman Returns, the first few times I saw it as a kid, I have grown to appreciate it a lot more as an adult, and it remains one of my personal favorites of all the Batman films. The unique style of its director Tim Burton injected so much life and personality to everything shown on screen, and while the dark themes and ideas the film discussed were considered very taboo at the time of its release and garnered it a lot of criticism, in actuality, if you really think about it, Batman Returns raised the bar and laid the foundation for a lot of these same kinds of superhero films that discuss a lot of these same dark concepts we enjoy today. The genre owes a lot to it. It had the balls to go in its own direction and basically ignore what was then mainstream. Today, I'll be reviewing the official comic adaptation of Batman Returns to see how it compares, what it changes, what it may improve upon, and of course, what it may fall short on. It came out in August of 1992, a little under 2 months following the film's North American release, and was written by Dennis O'Neill with art provided by Steve Irwin. The story begins with a flashback depicting two wealthy socialites, the Cobblepots, getting rid of their disfigured and animal-like baby named Oswald, throwing him in a river with his basket drifting into the Gotham sewers, where it is found by a group of penguins living beneath the condemned Arctic World Zoo. Yeah, I know, just go with it. Decades later, we see rich industrialist Max Schreck meeting with Gotham's mayor regarding a power plant Schreck wants to build. I had extreme difficulty reading his dialogue in this comic without forming a Christopher Walken impression in my head. Anyways, the mayor refuses the project, believing the city has more than enough power to take it into the next century. Schreck, his son Chip, and the mayor then go to a Christmas tree lighting ceremony in Gotham Plaza, and, on their way to the podium, Schreck threatens the mayor with a possible recall. As Schreck delivers his speech, the plaza is suddenly attacked by the Red Triangle Circus Gang, who look to kidnap Max Schreck. Batman is called upon with the bat signal and quickly arrives to commit senseless murder after senseless murder, just like in the film. He also saves Shrek's secretary, Selina Kyle, who is being held hostage by a circus clown holding a taser. We catch a glimpse of the new armored-looking Batsuit, as it was depicted in Batman Returns. Again, though, much like the comic adaptation of the '89 film, Batman's eyes aren't always drawn with enough shadow, and you do see his skin tone at times. Shrek fails to escape the Red Triangle Circus gang and is taken to the sewer hideout of Oswald Cobblepot, now known simply as the Penguin, beneath Arctic World. Shrek is blackmailed into helping Penguin reintegrate himself within society, and Shrek agrees to help if Penguin does a favor for him in return. The Penguin stages a kidnapping of the mayor's infant child and makes himself out to be the hero. He tells the news crews that all he wants is to find his parents and to understand why they chose to do what they did to him. He's playing the sympathy card, one that wins over Bruce Wayne, who is watching the coverage of the events in the comfort of his mansion. While out on his nightly patrol, Batman sees the Penguin sitting alone in Gotham's Hall of Records, writing stuff down, and is very suspicious of him. We cut to the offices of Max Shreck, where Selina is getting Shrek's speech prepared for a meeting he has with Bruce Wayne the following day. Unfortunately, Selina uncovers protected files that go into how the power plant Shrek wants to build will drain Gotham of its energy and store it like a big capacitor. Because of this, Shrek kills her, pushing her out the window of his building. In the theatrical film, Shrek's son Chip was depicted as being relatively innocent, more or less, but here he's just as corrupt and sinister as his father. They both agree that Selina had jumped out the window, committing suicide due to boyfriend trouble or stress. Miraculously, Selina manages to survive her fall, and is essentially reborn by a group of stray cats that surround her. She returns to her apartment, trashes it, and makes herself a costume, becoming Catwoman, and unleashing her aggression on any man that crosses her path. Bruce Wayne meets with Shrek in his office, and explains his concerns over the power plant. Having met with the mayor already, Bruce is in agreement with him that the city has enough power. Bruce also believes that Max has ulterior motives, and is wary over the fact that Shrek has recently partnered up with Oswald Cobblepot, with Bruce having evidence that Oswald runs the Red Triangle Circus gang. Just then, Selina enters the boardroom to the surprise of Shrek. She seemingly has amnesia and can't remember the cause of her visible injuries. Shrek asks Selina to escort Wayne out, and the two instantly hit it off on their way to the elevator. With no other option to get his power plant project off the ground, Shrek convinces the Penguin to run for Gotham mayor and use his Red Triangle Circus gang to stir up trouble in the city and discredit the current one. Oswald reluctantly agrees, and only really does so because Shrek brings up the poontang being mayor would bring him. The man has been living in the sewers for decades. Can you really blame the guy for his choice of priorities? Batman tries his best to put out the flames of criminal activity that ignite all over Gotham. He takes out a group of Penguin circus goons with his remote-guided batarang, as seen in the film, which is also caught in the mouth of a criminal's dog, one we see Batman fail to chase down, which is hilarious. We also get that sequence with the explosive, strapped to a clown in the comic instead of the strongman like in the film. Dennis O'Neil and Steve Irwin have it, so Batman just knocks the criminal out and throws the bomb down a manhole. They try their best to alleviate some of the killing this Batman does, as much as they can at least. Batman is confronted by the Penguin, who is admiring his handiwork, and gives the Dark Knight that iconic "things change" speech from the film. Suddenly, Catwoman crosses their path and sets off an explosive in Shrek's department store. Batman goes after her, and the two fight on a nearby rooftop. Catwoman knocks Batman off of it, and as he's hanging precariously, she brings up the similarities and differences the two of them share, that Batman wants to preserve the peace in Gotham City, and she wants to disturb it. Batman is able to hit Catwoman with a pellet filled with some sort of acidic fluid, which gives him the time to climb back up and catch Catwoman before she falls. She asks him who he really is under the mask, even teases him by saying he can help her find who she is underneath as well, before stabbing him in the abdomen with one of her claws, and Batman knocks her off the building they are standing on. Selina survives yet another fall, this time landing in the back of a sand truck, being saved by kitty litter. We see more attempts to make the comic more kid-friendly than its big-screen counterpart. Not only was that bizarre, nose-biting scene removed when Shrek revealed his plans to make Oswald mayor, introducing him to his election team, but thankfully, we also don't have to see Penguin grope some young female voter, or say just the pussy I was looking for when he meets Catwoman in his office. Betcha that'll sell some McDonald's Happy Meals, huh? Catwoman proposes that Penguin turn Batman into a criminal in the eyes of the public, turn the city against him along with the mayor. Penguin challenges the mayor to have another tree-lighting ceremony in Gotham Plaza to show the populace he can effectively protect them. He also invites Batman to attend as well. Penguin would use the Batarang taken by the dog from earlier to knock out the Ice Princess, who will be in charge of spectacularly lighting the tree at the ceremony. She still does, don't you worry. The police find the Batarang stained with blood and believe Batman may have been responsible for the Ice Princess's disappearance. The Dark Knight arrives at Gotham Plaza and finds the Ice Princess tied to a chair. Catwoman appears, and the two fight again, briefly, before the Ice Princess is taken up to the rooftop. When Batman reaches her, the Ice Princess is standing perilously on the edge, overlooking the plaza below. Before she can walk safely into Batman's arms, Penguin shows up and throws an umbrella at her, which is full of bats. Panicked and frightened, the Ice Princess stumbles off the roof, and the citizens below believe she had been pushed by Batman. The Ice Princess is killed when she lands on the electrical box of the Christmas tree, and it lights up, releasing even more bats that fly around and begin terrorizing all those in attendance. Batman manages to escape police capture using a gliding apparatus that extends out of his cape and lands in a nearby alley where he had parked the Batmobile. When he enters it, though, he finds that it has been taken over by the Penguin. While Batman had been dealing with the Ice Princess and Catwoman, Oswald's goons had found his car, disassembled it, and attached a device that allowed Penguin to control it remotely. Penguin begins taking Batman on a joyride throughout the city, causing as much damage and risking as many lives as possible to further tarnish Batman's reputation. The Caped Crusader is able to rip out enough of the Batmobile circuitry to regain control of it in enough time to transform it to fit through a tight alleyway and get away from the police who are in hot pursuit. The next day, Oswald does a speech in Gotham Plaza, but Batman, with the help of Alfred, somehow manages to jam the microphone's frequency and use previously recorded audio of Penguin dissing Gotham and its citizens while he was controlling the Batmobile to turn the crowd against him. Even Max Schreck bails on Oswald to save his own ass. Penguin is then chased by an angry mob and retreats back into the sewers. Shrek hosts a charity costume ball to regain favor with the public after the Penguin fiasco. I always loved this sequence in the movie. You have Bruce and Selina both attending and have seemingly dressed as themselves. No costumes at all, but those are their costumes. Their true faces are the ones covered by a mask. The party is interrupted by the Penguin, who reveals to all of the wealthy socialites present that as he speaks, his gang is fanning out all over the city and stealing their firstborn children, a list of names he had compiled from the Hall of Records earlier. Penguin tries to take Chip Shrek hostage, but instead is convinced by Max to take him instead, so he can get revenge against him for abandoning him at his speech. I've said this countless times, but the idea of the Penguin stealing young children is one of the darker elements of the film, hands down. He has them caged up in this creepy train that drives around, and wants to drown them all in the sewers. It's really fucked up. Thankfully, Batman is able to stop Penguin's goons and save the children. The villain is given a note in his sewer lair from an organ grinder's monkey, and asks what's taking them so long. A stop at McDonald's? That's hilarious because Batman Returns and its Happy Meal promotion got a lot of heat from parents for marketing such a violent movie to kids. With the children rescued, Penguin initiates his contingency plan. He straps missiles to the backs of a Penguin army in the hopes of destroying Gotham City. That too is thwarted by Batman though, who hacks the signal's frequency from within the sewer tunnels in his Bat ski boat vehicle. Furious, Penguin tries to make his escape in a four-wheeled duck, but is intercepted by Batman, who crashes through the surface of Arctic World. Batman and Penguin fight each other with the Dark Knight summoning a swarm of bats, which cause the villain to stumble backwards and crash through the glass ceiling of the Penguin enclosure, his lair, with him falling into the shallow water below. Catwoman had gone after Shrek, wanting to kill him for killing her, an eye for an eye. Bruce desperately tries to reach Selina, trying to convince her to give up her quest for revenge and to come home with him, but she refuses, even after they both remove their masks. Batman pulls his cowl off like a helmet and doesn't rip it off like he does in the film, where the makeup around his eyes just disappears in that one shot. Once you see it, it's impossible to unsee, and kind of ruins the moment. Selina ends up killing Shrek with a power surge, using the taser she had taken from the clown Batman saved her from at the beginning, and is presumed dead. Penguin managed to survive his fall, but is mortally wounded. He tries to finish off Batman with one of his umbrellas, but is unable to, picking the cute one, and just slumps over dead beside the water. His funeral, with the Penguins acting as pallbearers, is just as cheesy and disturbing as it was in the movie. The GCPD wonder if their relationship with Batman can be repaired after everything that has happened, and if Gotham's citizens can forgive him and they. Alfred picks up Bruce, who wonders if Selina had made it out of Penguin's lair alive. Bruce sees what he believes to be her silhouette in an alleyway, but it turns out to be a stray black cat that he decides to take in. Bruce then wishes Alfred and the rest of Gotham City a Merry Christmas. The comic adaptation of Batman Returns is pretty decent for what it's worth. Like all of these movie tie-in comics though, it feels rushed, and its compromised form just leaves me wanting more by the end. Want me to just go watch the movie it's based on instead. But the story here still manages to do enough of the film justice that it's not a complete waste of time reading it and enjoying the artwork. With all of my reviews looking at these movie to comic adaptations of the Batman films, I hope I haven't been sounding like a broken record, but by the end, they all make you feel the same way. What else can I say? The Batman Returns comic doesn't do a whole lot to really stand out from the movie though. There aren't any additional deleted scenes that made their way into it or anything, like in some of the other comic adaptations I've looked at, which is no fun. Here, more was just removed to tone down the violence and sexual innuendo. All of the Batman Catwoman stuff in the story is great, but we don't see enough of Bruce and Selina together, just their brief interaction at Shrek's office, and then later at the costume ball. We don't get to see them talk on the street in front of that store, or the date they have at Wayne Manor when they both have to leave. It's a shame, but I understand why it was all cut. There are only so many pages they can fill. I hope you guys enjoyed my quick rundown and review of the Batman Returns comic adaptation. Let me know what you think of it and what you think of the movie down in the comments section below. In a few weeks' time, I will be taking a look at the recently released Batman '89 limited series that made a solid attempt to continue the universe of the Tim Burton Batman films. It was written by the same screenwriter of those movies, Sam Hamm, and is in many ways the third film we never got to see. Stay tuned. Hello everyone, it's NerdGasm, back with another comic book review. The Tim Burton Batman movies are two of my favorite adaptations of The Dark Knight outside of comics. Though they take some liberties surrounding the character and his universe at times, the entertaining and eccentric performances in them, on top of their distinct stylized visuals, make them two of the most memorable and impressive superhero films ever released in my opinion. Many feel that the original Batman film franchise went downhill after Batman Returns. In the many years since its release, fans of the Tim Burton movies had always speculated what a true third film would have looked like if the director had been kept on and Michael Keaton had reprised his role as the Dark Knight. In 2021, we would see a limited series comic book released entitled Batman '89, which was as close to a third film as we were gonna get. Originally pitched in 2015 by artist Joe Quinones, Batman '89 was intended to be a continuation of the Tim Burton Batman universe, just in comic book form. It was to reimagine various characters, supervillains, and other concepts that would have been featured in a third Batman movie had it been released. The Batman '89 project would be cancelled by DC Comics, though, for whatever reason, and was believed to have only come back and materialize due to the return of Michael Keaton as Batman in the upcoming Flash movie, set to release later this year. Batman '89 is a really intriguing concept. I've always wondered what a third Tim Burton Batman movie would have looked like, and getting to see some of the elements of it survive and be immortalized like this is really cool, even if it is just a comic. The story feels authentic to its source material because it was written by the screenwriter of those first two Batman films, Sam Hamm. The artwork by Quinones also provides greater consistency with the original movies, more so than their sequels, Batman Forever and Batman and Robin did. We see the return of Harvey Dent in this comic, and his appearance is modeled after Billy D. Williams, who played the character in the 1989 film. GCPD Police Sergeant Barbara Gordon is also introduced, Dent's fiancée, in the story. And is it just me, or was she made to look like Winona Ryder, who had frequently collaborated with Tim Burton at that time, in the late 80s and early 90s, with films like Beetlejuice and Edward Scissorhands? Anywho, let's not delay this any further and get into the story of Batman '89. Let's see if it lived up to all the hype. It takes place almost a year after the events of Batman Returns, during the Halloween season of 1993, which is neat because Batman Returns was set during Christmas time. I would even accept the notion of this comic taking place in late 1995, the year the third film in the franchise, Batman Forever, was released, with Batman '89 essentially taking its place in the timeline. At one point in the story, there is a game station on display in a shop's window, clearly modeled after the original Sony PlayStation, which came out that same year, at least in North America. Since the events of Batman Returns, Gotham City has fallen into chaos. Gangs of criminals dressed as the Joker and groups of vigilantes dressed as Batman are at war with one another. Riots and burglaries ensue, and both factions end up committing crimes because the masks they wear hide their identities, and they don't fear any consequences. They have become corrupted by the mask's power. The National Guard is called in to fight back these gangs, and a curfew is put in place throughout the city. Orders are sent out to capture the real Batman, dead or alive, as he is being held responsible for the existence of these copycat groups. The Gotham City shown throughout this comic doesn't look very similar to the Gothic one from the Tim Burton movies, and I think some sort of issue regarding royalty fees might be to blame. Warner Brothers is usually pretty protective of its properties as well, and gives guidelines for creators to follow, so maybe that might have been it too. Gotham is made more Art Deco in this comic, like the one found in Batman the Animated Series. Some of its design elements borrow heavily from the show, and I think this aspect of it soured some people. It was a puzzling direction to go in, that's for sure. We wanted the darker and more atmospheric Gotham we had seen in the Tim Burton movies. This one has far less personality and appeal. You've even got characters from Batman the Animated Series that show up with very similar designs to what they had in the series, like reporter Summer Gleason and Harvey Dent's assistant Carlos, for example. The Batsuit seems to be an amalgamation of the one from Batman Returns mixed in with the animated series. It has this night vision function that has white visors come down over Batman's eyes, which honestly is a nice touch. It makes this Batman look a bit more comic accurate, despite being based on a live-action incarnation. In Batman 89, Gotham's district attorney, Harvey Dent, has gone after Batman, as well as Commissioner Gordon. He believes the vigilante has hidden behind his mask, just like the rest of the criminals in the city, and has not been made accountable for his actions. He also believes that Batman is not just a single man, but many, a personal hit squad employed by Gordon. How else could Batman survive so much physical punishment? Dent calls on the city council for a vote of no confidence to remove Gordon from his position as police commissioner. We learn more of Harvey Dent's backstory. He grew up in Burnside, a run-down and poverty-stricken section of Gotham City that has a predominantly black population. Living the life of a rich socialite has been a way for him to put on his own mask, a different face than the one he had growing up. Batman 89 does a pretty good job tackling social issues, centering around the divide between social classes, privilege, and race relations. The idea that there are two sides of Gotham City, two versions very few people know about and understand, and I thought that was very interesting. One night, while patrolling Burnside, Batman follows a young thief back to his apartment that had just stolen diapers for a crying baby. He asks where his mother is, and gets lured by a voice resembling a woman's to the fire escape. Batman is then ambushed and attacked by another masked vigilante, who knocks him off of the fire escape. Though Batman manages to catch himself with his grappling hook, he slams into the wall below, which dazes him for a second. Members of the National Guard walking the streets see Batman and open fire. Batman uses a flash grenade to avoid the hailing bullets, but while propelling himself to the building's rooftop with his cable, the young thief he had followed is caught in the crossfire, who had been watching from the fire escape, and falls off of it to his death. Crushed by his failure, putting an innocent in harm's way, and being moved by the recent speeches made by his friend Harvey Dent, Bruce Wayne meets with Burnside's city council and offers to use his wealth to improve the neighborhood, offering to pay for schooling for all of the kids in the neighborhood and take the necessary steps to fix the systemic issues going on between the two sides of Gotham. The unnamed vigilante Batman had encountered in Burnside is named Drake Winston. He's a mechanic who works at Royal Auto Body, run by the childhood mentor of Dent named Jerome Otis. Drake is gifted with computers and has a photographic memory when it comes to car parts and their inner workings. He dresses up as a vigilante to fight for those that can't, the underdogs. He plays the role of a Robin Hood of sorts within his community, taking from the corrupt and wealthy and giving it back to those that need it. Something I really appreciate about this comic series is the effort it puts forth to be different. This version of Robin is definitely unique compared to many other interpretations. His name and backstory aren't the same as other ones from the comics. His relationship with Batman is virtually non-existent, and they are at odds with one another, at least for a large chunk of the story that has them operating alone. And I also really love his design and costume, the green and yellow color scheme, the hood and face mask. This would have been really awesome to see in live action form. I do hate that he is never officially called Robin though. The comic does allude to it, with the citizens of Burnside referring to him as a Robin Hood, and Drake caring for birds on the roof of Royal Auto Body, but the actual title is never bestowed upon him, or accepted for that matter. In case you were wondering, the R insignia on his costume is just taken from the logo of the auto shop, from one of his uniforms. That's its only real significance. Royal Auto Body would come under attack by Batman impersonators, who managed to track Drake down after he had stopped a robbery they had committed earlier. The Batman gang would set fire to the garage, and when Bruce Wayne, concealing his identity with a ski mask, tries to stop them, he finds that they have already been subdued by Selina Kyle, Catwoman, who had escaped death at the end of Batman Returns. Harvey runs into the auto shop to save Drake, but is knocked unconscious after falling down a weakened stairway. He lands face down near several car batteries, leaking sulfuric acid. Bruce and Drake are able to pull Harvey out of the burning building, though geez, they could have at least tried picking him up, don't you think? They didn't need to grind his face off the ground like that. God. Harvey becomes horribly disfigured as a result. Dent is taken to a nearby hospital, and we learn that the acid has also entered his respiratory system, damaging his brain, as well as his vocal cords. Bruce Wayne attempts to save his friend, offering to pay for any surgeries and psychological assistance he may require during his rehabilitation. In the hospital, we see another side of Dent's subconscious emerge, one that convinces him that every choice he makes leads down a different path among infinite forking realities. It persuades him to carve up one side of his lucky two-headed coin, making it the decision-maker, his link to these vast multiverses essentially. I like the spin this comic gives to the Two-Face character. The multiverse angle is unique, and one I don't think has really been explored before with him, at least not to this extent. It helps this version of Two-Face stand out a little bit on its own, in a sea of so many others. How the comic depicts Harvey Dent prior to his transformation is kind of contrived and out of left field though. It doesn't feel as much like a natural continuation of what had been established with the character in the original 1989 film, at least in my opinion. All the additional stuff with Burnside is great, but how much his relationship with Batman and especially James Gordon has soured in the years since isn't made all that believable to me. I get that he sees Batman as an enemy for instigating the Joker and Batman gangs that are terrorizing the city, and keep in mind, Gotham was already skeptical over Batman's actions following the events of Batman Returns, but for him to go after Gordon on top of that feels unnecessarily cold. He's Dent's father-in-law for Pete's sake. You'd think he'd sit down and have a conversation with the man or something, try to solve it some other way than just trying to get him fired, but I digress. Bruce receives a note from Selina Kyle and goes to meet her on top of Shrek's department store, where they had first met in Batman Returns. Bruce had believed Selina was dead following the power surge that killed Max Shrek. He had searched for her for a year, but came up with nothing. As the two flirt and we get a few callbacks to the movie, Selina reveals that she has been seeing a psychiatrist and has seemingly turned over a new leaf. She has returned to Gotham to target the rich and powerful white-collar criminals that are bleeding the city dry. She also criticizes Batman's focus on the smaller crimes, feeling they are inconsequential. Their conversation is interrupted by a series of fires started by arsonists recently released on early bail, and Batman and Catwoman work together to put them out. Due to the increase in crime in the city, the injuries sustained by Harvey Dent, a result of said criminal activity, and the fact that the arsonists had been released by the GCPD, protesters from Burnside marched towards City Hall to hold the government officials responsible. Lieutenant Harvey Bullock leads a squad of riot police that have been ordered to protect City Hall from the protesters. Robin, I'm just gonna call him Robin, fuck it, interferes in the proceedings and caused the police to retreat after giving bags of spray paint to the protesters, even dropping one of them like a giant bomb which explodes and covers one of the police trucks and Bullock himself. The only analogy for this I could think of was that the paint was like bird shit dropping from the sky. Robin shit. Selina Kyle infiltrates the GCPD, posing as IT support after having previously infected their computers with a KitKat virus. She steals classified information off of Sergeant Barbara Gordon's hard drive. Harvey Dent would escape the hospital he is being kept in, also taking with him a bunch of painkillers for his face. Finally, a Two-Face story that addresses that issue. Do you realize how much agonizing pain he would be in without them? Dent would go to his offices to grab files on Lincoln Savings and Loan, which will be important to the story later. He also hides out from the police searching for him in an abandoned part of Gotham subway, a partially constructed station underneath Burnside that was never completed. In the Batcave, we see that Bruce had purchased the giant penny that had hung above Gotham Bank. It had saved his life when he used it as a shield from criminals shooting at him when he stopped a robbery there earlier. Bruce learns that there are connections between the Wayne family as well as Drake Winston's. The Winston family ran a motor company in Burnside that had been bought out by Bruce's great-grandfather and then later closed down by its management. Bruce invites Drake to Wayne Manor to discuss the arsonists. When Drake asks Bruce to testify against the ones that had attacked Royal Auto Body, he refuses, having already given a statement to the police. Bruce mentions that Catwoman had been somehow involved in the attack, and Drake laughs at the idea, believing Catwoman to be an urban legend. Going off of a hunch of his, Drake pulls out a vial and claims that it's filled with battery acid. The fuck? Bruce ends up defending himself against Drake, throwing a pillow at him, which is silly, hurling him into a bookcase, spearing him, and smashing a coffee table off him as well. Drake would throw the vial and the mysterious substance would splash onto Bruce's face. Revealed to just be water, Drake knows that Bruce Wayne is Batman. His reclusive lifestyle, on top of his impressive Batmobile tech, requiring immense wealth to create and maintain, is what gives him away. Not only does Drake know the identity of Batman, but Bruce puts two and two together and realizes that Drake is the vigilante that had attacked him on the fire escape earlier, and the one that caused trouble at the protests. Bruce and Drake form a partnership, and Bruce shows him the Batcave, Batmobile, and prototype Batcycle. Batman and Robin go out on patrol, with Drake getting to drive the Batmobile, which is sweet, seeing as he had admired its design earlier in the story. The vehicle displays some new gadgets we never got to see in the Tim Burton movies, mainly a new hologram generator that creates two fake images of the Batmobile that allows the dynamic duo to evade the police that chase them. Their fun is short-lived, however, as Alfred informs them that 4 explosions just occurred in the subway tunnels beneath Gotham surrounding GCPD headquarters. Harvey, now calling himself Two-Face, has formed an army of criminals, combining both the Joker and Batman gangs together. They attack the police precinct, with their main target being its evidence lockup. A shootout ensues in the GCPD evidence room, and Lieutenant Bullock is shot by Two-Face. As Batman finds Commissioner Gordon and gets him to safety, Robin takes out the snipers Two-Face had ordered to surround the building, and we catch a glimpse of his upgraded red, green, and yellow suit that Batman and Alfred had set him up with. It looks great. Batman and Commissioner Gordon confront Harvey in the evidence room, but the Dark Knight is hit in the shoulder with a batarang, the one with the computerized targeting system that had been confiscated by the GCPD in Batman Returns. It causes him to accidentally shoot a tranquilizing dart into the neck of Gordon, who is taken hostage by Two-Face. Dent gives Batman a choice to either go after him and save the Commissioner or tend to Bullock's gunshot wound that will surely kill him if he doesn't get medical attention soon. Obviously, Batman chooses the first priority, being Bullock, and while carrying the injured lieutenant outside, Batman is surrounded by police. Thankfully, Robin arrives on the Batcycle and the two heroes are able to escape, and there is a clear reference to the motorcycle slide from Akira, always cool to see. Two-Face takes Gordon to his subway hideout. We learn that the dart in Gordon's neck is also a tracking device that Gordon is able to plant on Harvey's pant leg. Batman and Robin track Dent's movements to a floral shop and learn of his intention of meeting with his fiancée Barbara at Gotham Park. Selina Kyle is also listening in from her apartment. At the park, Harvey and Barbara have a tender moment, but I love how Babs remains stern with him, still having a job to do, and tries her best to arrest him for what he's done. Catwoman interferes and knocks out Barbara, giving Batman an opportunity to go after Two-Face. Back at his hideout, Dent is saddened by Barbara's betrayal, and though his coin had told him to let Commissioner Gordon live earlier, in anger, confusion, and frustration, his own decision overrides it, and he kills him anyways. Gordon knows that his daughter will never forgive Dent for killing him, and dies just as Batman arrives to confront his former friend. The death of James Gordon was not something I was expecting in this story. It was a real shocker. The Dark Knight tries to reason with Harvey, but Dent runs away holding a briefcase. After getting tripped with a rope batarang, Two-Face detonates a series of explosives in the subway tunnels, which cause them to collapse. Batman is trapped under the debris, and I love how you can see some eye makeup around his one eye, where his cowl is ripped. It's here where Two-Face learns Batman's secret identity. Robin and Catwoman rescue Batman from the rubble and take him back to the Batcave. When Bruce awakens in his bed, he is surprised to find Selina there waiting for him. She tells him that a financial company in Gotham called Lincoln Savings and Loan had orchestrated a bank heist and had been running federal aid funds through various mob rackets, lining the pockets of several political figures in the city. A briefcase in Dent's possession contains evidence against these politicians, and Harvey plans on using it to blackmail them. Two-Face meets with Gotham's most powerful mobsters and politicians, and orders them to drop all charges against him and clear his name. Carmine Falcone insults Dent and his scarred appearance, and Harvey kills him by shooting him point blank, even after his coin lands good side up. Why? Because Dent believes Falcone's death is good for the city. I think that's a fun little twist on the outcome of Two-Face's coin. Whether a decision is good or bad all depends really on one's point of view, doesn't it? Harvey would go confront his mentor Otis at the rebuilt auto shop, but after Otis basically disowns him as a human being, and really the entire Burnside community has disowned Dent due to his recent actions, Harvey decides to kill Otis too, and frames Drake Winston for his death. Finally, Harvey would meet with Bruce in the Batcave, healing from his injuries in a wheelchair, and attempt to blackmail him as well. Two-Face agrees to keep Batman's secret identity safe, but only if the vigilante becomes his personal bodyguard and enforcer. Bruce refuses Dent's offer and instead gives him two different options. Either Harvey kills him or he allows Bruce to help him fix his disfigurement, and the two can save the city of Gotham together. Bruce is giving him a second chance. Two-Face flips his coin, but before the outcome is decided, the giant penny in the Batcave is dislodged by Catwoman, who cuts the ropes supporting it. The penny rolls over to the edge of the cliff and forces Two-Face off of it. Bruce tries to save Harvey, but sadly, he falls to his death. Dent sees all of the different realities branching from that single moment, and in one of them sees a Gotham where he and Bruce have grown old and are still friends. The city is happy, its two halves are whole, and this gives him peace of mind. Despite being an emotional moment, unfortunately how this sequence is laid out over 2 pages is incredibly confusing. The artwork, the dialogue, it's supposed to represent different realities intersecting with one another at the same time, one where Bruce is killed by Two-Face, and the other with the villain dying, but it's very hard to follow and loses a lot of its impact as a result. I felt like I was having a stroke trying to get through it. Bruce ends up giving Harvey's gun to the police, which clears Drake of the murder charges. Bruce allows Drake full access to the Bat-Cycle, and Drake decides to continue to operate as a vigilante on his own, though he and Batman will still keep in contact. Barbara Gordon would receive 2 packages, a briefcase from Harvey containing Batman's identity as Bruce Wayne, and the other a note from Selina offering to help her take down Gotham's corrupt elite, establishing an Oracle-like relationship. Still healing from his injuries, Bruce has a dream where he is married to Selina with kids, before being woken up by Alfred. When asked if he will go out on his nightly patrol, he leaves the answer to a flip of a coin. Bruce's days as a masked vigilante may or may not be numbered. For the most part, I enjoyed the story of Batman '89. The Tim Burton films are 2 of my favorites in the superhero genre, and Michael Keaton is still one of my favorite live-action Batmans as well. This series felt like a natural continuation of Batman and Batman Returns that implements a lot of the story threads that were going to be featured in a 3rd Batman movie, had Tim Burton directed it. I'm sure it wouldn't have played out exactly like this, of course. Alterations would have been made to the real thing, but at least it feels somewhat authentic. I think having it written by the original screenwriter definitely helps. I like how Batman '89 incorporates many new and familiar characters into this universe. I like how the return of Catwoman is handled, the debut of Robin, and the reintroduction of Harvey Dent, who seemingly disappeared from Gotham after the original movie, without an explanation given in Batman Returns. Some of the Two-Face stuff in this story is really awesome, and like I had mentioned, the multiple realities angle given to him allows this version of the villain to stand on his own a little bit from others. But I have to admit, the final issue of Batman '89 is very anticlimactic and does the rest of this story a disservice. The death scene of Two-Face is made really confusing with how poorly it's laid out. It's very hard to follow. The fact that the final confrontation between Batman and Two-Face happens in the Batcave too, with Bruce in a wheelchair, injured, also makes it feel very low energy, low stakes. If this were the actual ending of a superhero film, I think a lot of people would leave the theater dissatisfied. I feel like the ending of this story should have happened in the subway. That's when Gordon died, and that's when Batman's cowl was damaged and revealed his identity. I think having Two-Face do himself in with the tunnel collapse would have been far more fitting than the ending we eventually got. You could have still given him a death that was emotional, trapped under the rubble, a back and forth with Bruce that had Harvey see the beautiful alternate reality. It would have been great, and it would have made Two-Face's death here different from the ones that have had him fall, like in Batman Forever and The Dark Knight, to switch it up a bit. I know comparing comic books to movies is unfair because they are vastly different forms of media. One can accomplish things the other cannot, and vice versa. But honestly, I think Batman Forever is a stronger story than Batman '89. Maybe not all throughout, but the film does leave you with a more satisfying conclusion than the comic does. I think Batman 89 was extended 1 or 2 issues longer than it needed to be, which weakened the final product in the end. I don't hate it, I like a lot of things it has to offer, but it is inferior to the story of the Batman Forever film, and even some of the other stories that have been told featuring Two-Faces that never saw the light of day, like the lost episode of the Batman 66 comic, for example. Batman 89 is not bad. Some of the story ideas here are really cool and the artwork is amazing, but I get a sense that the ending was sorta rushed. It just leaves you wanting a bit more is all. It traded what I feel would have been a more impactful ending for one that was artificially extended and a bit more contrived feeling. I don't know. Let me know your thoughts on the Batman 89 comic down in the comments section below. If you enjoyed this video and want to see more like it, make sure to show your support to the channel by subscribing, hitting that bell icon for notifications, and by becoming a producer over on patreon.com for as little as $1 a month. I will see you all in the next one. Take care, stay safe, and always stay nerdy. In 1995, director Joel Schumacher took his first swing at the Batman franchise with Batman Forever, a colorful and upbeat take on the character, and an obvious change of pace from the two darker and gothic films that had come before, in order to market itself to a wider audience, mainly children. As I've grown older, I've started to enjoy this film less and less the more times I watch it. Don't get me wrong, it's always been a bad movie, but I do find some elements work in it, like the death of the Flying Graysons for example, and some of the more unsettling and serial killer-esque scenes with the Riddler. Despite Schumacher's second attempt, Batman and Robin, being a complete and utter failure, universally despised by fans and critics alike, I'd have to say it's the better film of the two in my opinion. Yeah, Batman and Robin is a mess, and filled to the brim with cheesy moments, over-the-top special effects, and campy one-liners, but it at least knows what it is. It doesn't try to be anything different. In that sense, Batman and Robin is at least consistent. Terrible, but consistent. With Batman Forever, I feel its tone is all over the place. 1 second it's trying to be dark and brooding, with flashbacks of Bruce Wayne's past, and him coping with the memories of his parents, who the Flying Graysons plummeting to their doom, and the next, the Batmobile is driving up the side of a building where the film's villains, Two-Face and the Riddler, are playing battleship with one another. Batman Forever feels like it's stuck between the established tone of the Tim Burton films and the flashy neon lights that would be in Batman and Robin. Batman Forever has a bit of an identity crisis. It's sort of stuck in the middle. I find the film far less entertaining than Batman and Robin. It's uninspired, the side characters and the performance of Batman himself are stale, and even the action and set pieces don't hold up as well. Both films are bad Batman movies, but I find Batman and Robin to be much more memorable, despite it being a dumpster fire. It's a glorious and funny dumpster fire. Batman Forever is just a forgettable and mediocre one. Really, it's just a case of pick your poison though, isn't it? Today, I wanted to take a look at and review the official comic book adaptation of the Batman Forever film, released in 1995. I'm curious to see if it provides us with any new insight on the movie, or offers us any new ideas, maybe even surpass what the original film brought to the table. I doubt it, but who really knows until we dive right in. We begin with the script for the movie fading into the comic and a security guard yelling for a Dr. Burton. Subtle. We're shown a grisly scene where Two-Face has escaped Arkham Asylum, leaving a body hanging from the ceiling, and the Bat must die, written in blood, on the padded walls. Honestly, this is great. It was even a deleted scene in the actual movie, which would have helped it establish the darker side of the Two-Face character a little better than what we got. Already the comic gets a point over the movie for including it here. Just like in the film, we have a news anchor run down the events which led to the creation of Two-Face. Acid was thrown on District Attorney Harvey Dent's face during a trial by a mob boss he was prosecuting, and it caused brain damage on his left side. Yup, no split personality beforehand, like the amazing Batman animated series. Here, it's just acid causing brain damage. That's why he's so evil. During an inspection of Wayne Enterprises, Bruce Wayne is violently interrupted by Edward Nygma, who goes on to explain how Wayne is his idol and that he has been working on a device that manipulates brainwaves and beams television signals into the human mind. Bruce tells him that tampering with people's brainwaves is wrong and raises too many questions, or I guess question marks. Once again, subtle. Of course, Enigma is crushed, and Bruce is called to his other job. The bastards still manage to squeeze in that drive-thru joke, and Batman, in the Batmobile, makes his way to Two-Face. The exchange with the security guard here Tommy Lee Jones delivers in the film, which is one of the only accurate sequences of dialogue that have a firm grasp on Two-Face as a character, is done quite well here, even with a few added-in lines to boot. "Counting on Badass to rescue you? Are you gonna kill me?" "Might, might not. We're of two minds on the subject. What say we flip for it? What could be fairer than the random toss of an honest coin? Life or death? Exhilarating, isn't it? The suspense, sudden death or a new lease on life, truly makes a man live in the moment. You're in luck. You get to live to whimper another day." Two-Face lets him live, but decides to use him as bait to trap Batman, and I'm reminded how much I hate this neon-lit Gotham City. It's terrible. Anyways, Batman arrives, meets with the ever-forgettable and bland psychologist and love interest, Chase Meridian, played by Nicole Kidman in the film, before making his way into the building via elevator, dodging bullets and beating up some of Two-Face's thugs. He also uses what I can only assume is a glue gun. Guess they didn't want to draw that weird wobble guy. And Batman karate chops one of the thugs in the throat, though it looks more like a clothesline. Batman finds the security guard, but Two-Face locks them in a vault before it begins to fill with acid, the same acid that scarred Harvey Dent. Two-Face lifts the vault with a helicopter and tells Batman that despite them being former friends who teamed up against evil, he is getting revenge against Batman for leaving him at Arkham. Yet again, slightly more effective than the film. He's actually saying things Two-Face would say, not just laughing. Batman saves the security guard, and then cuts the chain, and lets the vault plummet back into the hole. That's not dangerous whatsoever. Goodbye to that pointy-eared, steroid-eating, rubber-suited, cross-dressing night rat. Jesus, that was overkill. Cross-dressing? I mean, not really, but okay. The helicopter approaches the Lady of Gotham. Two-Face bails with his parachute, and Batman dives into the water, praying to God his suit floats and he can swim in it. With that limited neck maneuverability, I have my doubts. We then cut to Wayne Enterprises after hours, where Edward Nygma has tied down his supervisor strictly and uses his device to sap his brainwaves and grow smarter. Afterwards, Strictly fires Nygma, and Nygma proceeds to throw him out a window before asking himself why Bruce Wayne has it all and not him. You're the question mark guy, you figure it out. Honestly, the movie does a much better job with this scene, and the moment he destroys the security camera is actually kind of unsettling. Just like in the movie, Commissioner Gordon accepts that Strictly's death had to be a suicide. It's not like he has a team of detectives that can look into it or anything. Bruce Wayne receives a riddle. If you look at the numbers on my face, you won't find 13 anyplace, and the image of it unfolding looks just as odd as it does in the film. Wayne then goes to the office of Chase Meridian to have the riddle analyzed, and within a single page, it speeds through everything in this scene, beat for beat from the movie, really quickly, and you barely have any time to react to it. The wacko line, Bruce asking her to the circus to get her out of her clothes and into a dress, everything. This page has the worst pacing of the comic yet, but then again, you can't blame them. They had to adapt the movie, which is 2 hours long. The comic is a little over 60 pages, so pacing issues are bound to happen. They arrive at Gotham's Hippodrome where the circus is underway, and the Flying Graysons are performing their acrobatic act. Bruce asks Chase if she wants to go rock climbing with him, and she says she's met someone else. She actually looks like a corpse that has been propped up. Their chemistry is just as stale and wooden as it is in the movie. Two-Face hijacks the performance and threatens the audience with explosives. Because Gotham's richest are here, he believes one of them has to be Batman and should surrender themselves. Honestly, this was a clever move if you think about it. Even in the movie, I think it worked well. The Flying Graysons try to defuse the bomb, but Two-Face flips his coin and it lands scratch side up. So, Two-Face aims his gun at the rope suspending Dick Grayson's parents and fires, snapping it, and they fall to their deaths. Dick had just gotten rid of the bomb, and he looks on in terror at the sight below. In the Batman Forever film, the death of the Flying Graysons was one of its more accurate and emotional segments, probably the best storyline aspect of the entire movie, if I were to be completely honest. Dick is meant to stay at Wayne Manor for a bit, but decides to bail in order to hunt down Two-Face. Bruce tries to talk him out of it, and tells him to fill up in the garage before he leaves, and bribes him with run-down motorcycles, telling him anyone who can fix them up can keep one as a fee. We then cut to Batman meeting Chase Meridian on the top of police headquarters. Just like in the movie, it's pointless. Skip. Then there's the dumb Batmobile chase scene, which also served no purpose in the film. Instead of driving up a wall, however, Batman smashes through the side of a bridge, and the Two-Face thug following him hits the side of a building and dies while Batman drives off. Okay. While Two-Face is deciding what to eat at his hideout, the Riddler walks out from the shadows and introduces himself. Oh yeah, I forgot he was in this. He makes hand shadows for Two-Face and shows him his device, which makes the user of it smarter. Riddler continues to explain his plan of creating a bigger empire which will eclipse Bruce Wayne's, and his intent to help Two-Face solve the greatest riddle of all: who is Batman? After they go on a crime spree and steal millions, they sit back at their island hideout and take hits of the device as if they are doing drugs. It's actually kind of funny. Just like in the film, Dick finds his way into the Batcave, steals the Batmobile, and rescues a young girl being attacked by thugs. However, rather than get emotional at Bruce Wayne, who rescues him in the film as Batman, we get the argument back at the Batcave, with Bruce already dressed in the costume. It doesn't make as much sense. Dick demands that Batman train him as his partner, but he refuses. Bruce goes to a party held by Nigma that is showing off Nigma's new device called the Box, which he intends to put in every home in America and then the world. Unlike the film, it's now just a silly helmet instead of something that sits on top of your TV set. Two-Face ends the party early though, as his goons shoot up the place. Bruce leaves to become Batman. He breaks through the glass ceiling, I hope he's gonna pay for that, and takes on the thugs, kicking one guy square in the throat. That's two now. Two-Face escapes down a manhole, and his goons get ready to trap the Bat. Batman slides down the tube and crashes into a wall. Two-Face opens the gas valve and causes an explosion, though Batman survives thanks to his trusty cape. Two-Face is flabbergasted, and he and his men cause a cave-in. Thankfully, Dick is there sporting his Flying Grayson's costume and a mask to save Bruce from certain death. Batman goes to Chase Meridian's apartment to tell her how he feels, and she tells him she has met someone else, Bruce Wayne. What a cock tease. They even managed to squeeze in that stupid smile that was in the movie. I don't know which is worse. When Bruce was at the party and put on one of Nigma's devices, it scanned his mind, and now the Riddler and Two-Face know he is Batman. They attack Wayne Manor, kidnap Chase Meridian, Two-Face shoots Bruce Wayne, and the Riddler blows up the Batcave. Back at their island hideout, Nigma is shocked to find that Bruce Wayne has survived, and after Chase tells him he will rescue her, the Riddler sedates her with a needle. Alfred gathers all the riddles Bruce has been sent, and the two try and figure out who the Riddler is. Only one riddle was actually shown in the comic, so they don't have much to go off of, do they? Regardless, they find the answer and determine that Edward Nigma is behind it all. They go into a special Batcave found underneath the original Batcave that was destroyed. Wow, thank God they had that, huh? Bruce puts on the only remaining Batsuit, the sonar prototype, and plans on making his way to Claw Island, the Riddler's headquarters. Dick reappears in a brand new costume made by Alfred and wants to help, calling himself Robin. The dynamic duo take off and head for the hideout, both in the Batplane, which also doubles as a submarine. They arrive on the island, and Robin notices that the ground is metal. They missed the opportunity to use the Holy Rusted Metal Batman line from the film. Then again, it's a bit stupid, and out of place even though it pays homage to the classic 1960s series. Batman and Robin are separated, and Two-Face confronts the Boy Wonder on top of the raised platform. Robin gets the upper hand and kicks him off, only to help him back up. Two-Face uses the opening to capture Robin. Batman appears before the Riddler and Two-Face and comes to the realization that they know his secret identity. Nigma reveals Chase Meridian enclosed within a capsule, along with Batman's partner Robin, planning on pushing a button on his cane and sending one to a watery grave, forcing the Dark Knight to choose. Batman throws a batarang at the device, housing all the mental energy Nigma has absorbed from Gotham, and it begins to seep out of his brain. As the Riddler is weakened and his hideout exploding, Batman manages to rescue both Chase and Robin before they fall to their deaths. However, they are confronted by Two-Face, and just like in the movie, Batman causes the death of the villain by reminding him about his need for a coin toss, and throwing a bunch more into the air, which causes him to stumble and fall. Where he got the coins, I don't know. Poor Edward. I had to save them both. I am Bruce Wayne and Batman, not because I have to be, because I choose to be. The comic ends with Nigma incarcerated at Arkham Asylum, believing himself to be Batman, and a final shot of the Dark Knight standing over the backdrop of Gotham City, a little different from the film, but an adequate way to finish this thing off. Batman Forever, the official comic adaptation, is just that, an adaptation of the 1995 film. Because of its reliance on the material used in the movie, it leaves a lot to be desired. Being that this is a 60-page comic, and Batman Forever is a 2-hour-long movie, it goes without saying that there are quite a few pacing issues with it. Longer scenes from the film are sometimes condensed within a few panels, or a single page, which can feel a bit disorienting and jumpy at times. Some changes made to the comic were appreciated, like Two-Face's escape from Arkham Asylum, which was a deleted scene from the beginning of the actual film. I also liked the darker direction it went, with the occasional bad language, the pool of blood around the flying Graysons, and even Riddler sedating Chase Meridian with that giant needle. These were great. With that said, the darker moments make the lighter and sillier ones stand out even more, and in turn, make it less consistent tonally than the film even was. While I do enjoy the art style of the comic, it encompasses the visuals of the film quite well. Even that is inconsistent at times. Some of it is great, while others just plain weird and grotesque looking. I get a sense that the comic was rushed to meet the release date of the film, and it shows. I think the characterization of Two-Face is done better justice here than it is in the film, though it still lands short of where it needs to be. At least he doesn't laugh as much, am I right? The Riddler, though, I find to be even more forgettable in this comic than he was in the Batman Forever film. He barely even uses riddles. Yeah, the movie only had a small handful too, but here it's only one that we see, the one with the clock. The Riddler in the movie was not well done, but at least it was entertaining due to the energy and charisma of Jim Carrey. He made it fun and watchable. Here, it's just bland and bare bones, as simplistic as you could possibly get. Reading this comic made me realize how much I do enjoy the film of Batman Forever, at least the elements it gets right, because contrary to popular belief, there was some good stuff in it, much like there is in every superhero film. The death of the Graysons, the introduction of Robin, I even liked the serial killer tone the Riddler had with some of his puzzles, and the darker moments featuring him, despite the majority of the time it was just Jim Carrey being Jim Carrey. I don't think this comic adds anything really new and special to the overall experience the film gave us. Despite its overwhelming flaws, I'd just stick with the movie. It's a lot better. This has been NerdGasm. If you enjoyed the video, make sure to subscribe to the channel and hit that bell icon so you can be notified of all future content I upload. Let me know any comics or comic storylines you'd like me to take a look at in the future. And as always, take care of yourselves and I will see you in the next one. I've seen the movie, played and reviewed the ambitiously abysmal PlayStation game released a year after the fact, and now it is time to analyze the official comic adaptation of 1997's Batman and Robin. There has to be some way to salvage these characters and that story, turn it into something worthwhile, right? Can 3 times be the charm for me? Have I finally found the diamond in the rough in all this? Please, God, if you're up there, not to mention real, I need a miracle, just this once. Well, we start the story with Batman and Robin hopping into their vehicles on the way to the museum on what is quite obviously a movie set, and the director even yells action, so you can throw all credibility out the window already. Great. Mr. Freeze smashes through the floor of the Gotham Museum with his drilling truck, in the hopes of stealing the second son of Sudan Diamond. He even says his infamous line, "There is only one absolute everything. Freeze us." What the fuck is that supposed to mean? Freeze us? A diamond? I mean, okay. Batman and Robin smash through the ceiling, and Mr. Freeze saves us from that cringeworthy introduction Batman gives himself in the film. Sadly, Mr. Freeze still blesses us with that phenomenal, "You're not sending me to the cooler" line, so pick your poison. Batman goes after Freeze inside his rocket that was housed in the back of his truck, and Robin latches onto it after it blasts off. You know, this was so dumb. It was in the film too. Why would someone who needs a sub-zero environment to survive bring something that creates intense heat and flame like that? And what was his plan? Use the rocket to escape? Why? It's a museum. It seems unnecessary. Anyways, you know the drill. Mr. Freeze ejects himself out of the rocket, and Batman places some bat charges in its interior to blow it up. The dynamic duo then proceed to surf down to Gotham riding a couple of its doors, which looks slightly more badass than the film in my opinion. They follow Freeze down a furnace chimney, riding the ice down, and Robin says it was cool. Leave the ice puns to Mr. Freeze, dick. Shut the fuck up. The villain's armored truck smashes through the wall, and he makes his escape, not before freezing Robin during his exit. I'm glad they eliminated Mr. Freeze's "I'll kill you next time" line from the film, probably the most idiotic from a logic standpoint. We then cut to the South American jungle, to the laboratory of Pamela Isley. Jason Woodrue enters and steals a supply of venom for his own experiments in his lab, telling Isley he'll reveal his secrets when she reveals hers. Back at his lab, Woodrue has gathered several military leaders for a demonstration. He injects serial killer Antonio Diego with a super soldier serum, codenamed Venom, which transforms him into the heavily muscled Bane. At least that's what Woodrue calls these super soldiers. While the leaders bid on his creation, Woodrue takes Pamela, who had witnessed everything, back to her lab. It's here where she refuses to partner up with him, and he responds by killing her. Seems reasonable. Back at the Batcave, Bruce and Dick go through the origin of Mr. Freeze, a molecular biologist named Victor Freeze, who was trying to cure his dying wife when he was exposed to a cryo-solution which mutated his body. The diamond-enhanced lasers of his suit keep his body at 0 degrees. Without it, he would die. Back in South America, Pamela Isley has survived her chemical bath. The animal plant toxins have transformed her, and her smooches are now poisonously deadly. Her and Bane decide to go to Gotham, for reasons. I never understood why they just team up. Some serial killer and some botanist? Okay. Back in Gotham, Mr. Freeze is putting the finishing touches on his freezing cannon, which only needs one more diamond before it is operational. Once it is, he will freeze the city and hold it ransom, getting enough money to complete his research on McGregor's syndrome and cure his wife Nora. He actually refers to Gotham as Goat Town here, which is odd, but if you watch the movie again, it appears that the word Gotham doesn't line up with what Ernie is saying. Either it was a goof or a script rewrite or something, who knows. The fact that they kept it in the comic is kind of funny. Maybe Freeze thinks Gotham is the greatest of all time town? No? Fine then. Barbara arrives at Wayne Manor and greets her Uncle Alfred, though unlike the film, the comic makes it clear that he isn't really her uncle, just an old friend of her father's that took care of her when her parents tragically died. Dodged a bullet there. Later, at the Gotham Observatory, Bruce Wayne unveils a new telescope donated by Wayne Enterprises that can see anywhere on Earth, thanks to various satellites reflecting light to it already in orbit. Batman and Robin set a trap for Mr. Freeze at the Gotham Charity Flower Ball. One of the ladies auctioned off for a date will get to wear the famed Heart of Isis diamond on loan from Bruce Wayne. As the bidding begins, a pink gorilla starts to undress. Gorilla my dreams. Ugh, Robin, enough of the puns. Get the fuck out of here. Go home. I've had enough of your shit. Anyways, it's Poison Ivy who makes herself known. She takes the heart of Isis and the dynamic duo begin a bidding war over her. Thankfully, Mr. Freeze crashes the party earlier than he does in the film, and we don't have to witness the Bat credit card. As Batman and Robin are busy dealing with his hockey thugs, Mr. Freeze confronts Ivy, who makes fun of his fashion choice and calls him Captain Cold. Haha, funny! She attempts to charm him with her pheromone dust, which has no effect, and Mr. Freeze is able to snatch the diamond away from her and make his escape. Batman and Robin pursue Freeze's armored truck, which smashes through the side of a bridge and lands on a nearby building. Batman tells Robin he can't make the jump and deactivates his Redbird motorcycle. Honestly, the film does a much better job making this believable. Robin could have easily cleared that gap. Anyways, Bruce is able to apprehend Mr. Freeze single-handedly, which upsets Dick. The two argue about it back at the Batcave, and their relationship is heavily strained. At Arkham Asylum, where Freeze has been imprisoned, he is set free by Poison Ivy, having been wooed by his abilities at the Flower Ball. The hulking Bane retrieves his armor after smashing through a brick wall head first, which I have to admit is pretty badass. The three villains make their escape as we are informed Alfred has the same disease Nora Freeze has, McGregor's syndrome, which feels a bit abrupt. Dick tells Bruce that Freeze is at large, and the two make their way to his hideout, the blatantly obvious Snowy Cone's ice cream factory. Inside, they find Nora Freeze in cryogenic containment as well as research revealing Mr. Freeze curing earlier stages of McGregor's syndrome. His wife has a more advanced form though. Poison Ivy lures Batman and Robin to her, where she attempts to kiss the Dark Knight. After Batman refuses, she tells him that every Poison Ivy action figure comes complete with Bane, which is false advertising. Anyways, Batman dukes it out with Bane, which was honestly the best fight in the movie, unfortunately. While that's happening, Ivy attempts to seduce Robin and kill him with a kiss, but the Caped Crusader warns him that her lips might be poison, and Robin takes offense to it, misinterpreting it as jealousy. Batman proceeds to punch his partner square in the fucking face and even draws blood, a much better visualization of their partnership reaching its breaking point than having Robin thrown in some sort of ice cream goo like he is in the film. Behind Freeze's back, Ivy deactivates the containment unit, keeping Nora alive, and tells Freeze that it was Batman that did it, to which he promises to make him pay, turning his bones to ice, freezing his blood, and blanketing all of Gotham in endless winter. A doctor looks at Alfred and tells Bruce and Dick that he has stage 1 of McGregor's syndrome, something Bruce knows Freeze has cured, he just doesn't know how. On his deathbed, he gives Barbara a computer disk containing the sacred trust between two men he has considered sons. It takes her 2 hours to hack, but she learns the truth. Bane and Poison Ivy destroy the bat signal on top of the GCPD and replace it with a Robin one. The Boy Wonder responds to the call and confronts Ivy. He agrees to be with her as long as she trusts him by telling him her plan. Ivy explains that Mr. Freeze has turned the new Gotham Observatory telescope into a freezing gun, and proceeds to seal Robin's fate with a kiss. He learns that she never truly loved him, and would want nothing more than to see him die. Robin reveals that he had been wearing a rubber lips that is, which made him immune to the poison, something he and Batman had strategized prior. Upset, Ivy captures the two of them with her vines. Thankfully, Barbara arrives as Batgirl, smashing through the ceiling and takes out Ivy as Batman and Robin cut themselves out of their predicament. She tells them who she is, and that she knows their secret. Batman and Robin are surprised, however. No fucking shit she knows who you are. All of Gotham should at this point. I mean, Robin, that mask doesn't hide anything. And Batman, you're a billionaire for Christ's sake. Mr. Freeze proceeds to use the telescope as a giant freezing ray to put the city of Gotham on ice. Batman, Robin, and Batgirl make their way to the observatory, though, to put a stop to it. On their approach, they are attacked by Freeze's goons, skating with machine guns and driving Freeze's armored truck. The guys on skates, they should have thought that through a bit more. They are no match for tech-heavy vehicles. What the hell were they thinking? Rather than deflect its freeze cannon back at the armored truck like Batman does in the film, he straight up blows it up with a couple missiles. Wow, Batman even makes a pun. Funny. Don't you think that man will freeze to death in that water? Who cares, right? It's not like you have a moral code or anything. Mr. Freeze orders Bane to take out Robin and Batgirl, but leave Batman to him. By the time the heroes reach the telescope, Freeze is nowhere to be seen. They decide to use the satellites to relay sunlight from the equator and target it directly on Gotham to thaw it. Batman is blindsided by Freeze, who fires his freezing gun at the Dark Knight, who manages to block it with the protective cape of his Arctic armor batsuit. Like a Bond villain, Freeze proceeds to pull a lever which activates a trap door, getting rid of Robin and Batgirl for the time being. Batman fights back against Mr. Freeze, and it's hard-hitting. Kinda makes up for the weak-ass fight they have in the film, but not really. Batman then finishes realigning the satellites, and the city begins to heat up and melt. Robin and Batgirl manage to grapple up to a ledge on the side of the observatory, conveniently where Bane happens to be. How unlikely. They have a brief battle with the Meathead, and Robin manages to rip out the cord at the back of Bane's mask, getting rid of his venom supply, and reducing him into a small, shriveled-up man on the floor. As Gotham thaws, Mr. Freeze tells Batman to finish him off, kill him, just like he did his wife. Like a Teletubby, Batman opens up a little screen on his stomach and proves that Ivy had deactivated Nora's cryo container, not him. Batman reassures Freeze that Nora is alive though, and he had her restored, ready for him to continue his research at Arkham. And the next thing spoken by Batman, almost identical to the film, is actually a moment in the movie I find to be pretty good. It's great even. When Batman says vengeance isn't power, that anyone can take a life, but to give life, that's true power, a power Freeze once had. Batman then asks Freeze if he can help him save another life, show him how to cure McGregor's Syndrome Stage 1, and maybe then, Freeze can save the man his wife once loved as well. He's still alive, buried deep within the snow. Freeze gives Batman the cure, and he administers it to Alfred back at Wayne Manor. In no time flat, Alfred is back to his normal self. The three heroes form a partnership and shake hands, with Alfred saying they will need a bigger cave. Can't wait to see how this story unfolds in Batman Unchained. Oh, it wasn't made? You're telling me it didn't happen? Aww. So, that's the official comic adaptation of Batman and Robin. Is it better than the film? Did it provide any new context or perspective to what happened? Not really. There were a few added-in moments and visuals not present in the movie, but they were few and far between. When there was something new, it didn't really add a whole lot and was insignificant in the grand scheme of things. Honestly, I think the comic adaptation of Batman Forever I reviewed last year managed to give us a little bit more than this one here. I was hoping the fractured relationship between Batman and Robin, which was arguably one of the best ideas the film provided, would be explored a little bit more and done more effectively in this comic, but it wasn't, sadly. There were some heavier visuals, but the pacing of the story didn't give that element time to breathe, which kind of sucks. Speaking of the pacing, it's just as bad, if not worse, as the Batman Forever comic. It's just go 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 in some areas and barely touches on certain parts of the film I would have believed necessary. Alfred being sick comes out of the blue. You just see him in bed and there's nothing building up to that point or hinting that he's sick. It just happens. Even some things, like Barbara being interested in Dick's motorcycle, is hinted at, but all she does is drive it at night. It never mentions any illegal street racing or anything like she does in the film. Doesn't seem that important. I guess to provide us context in her ability to ride a motorcycle? I don't know, I'm grasping at straws. I feel bad for Dennis O'Neil for having to write this. Yes, the Dennis O'Neil. Adapting this terrible script while at the same time trying to tell a relatively enjoyable Batman story would have been an impossible feat. I mean, it's still readable and can be a lot of fun in areas, but it's got all the same issues the movie has. You have to expect that. O'Neil even added in his own puns, which are just as painful as the ones in the film. He probably thought he might as well go all in on everything, have some fun with it, why not? That Gorilla My Dreams one, though, that's worse than any used in the movie, I think. He managed to beat it there. The artwork by Rudolph DiMaggio is great, and embodies the look and tone of the film. Is that a compliment, though? DiMaggio would leave the comic industry in the early 2000s to become a concept and storyboard artist in the film industry. He worked on Star Wars Episode II, Attack of the Clones, Episode 8, The Last Jedi, Indiana Jones and the Kingdom of the Crystal Skull, Hulk in 2003, and even some of the Iron Man and Captain America films in the MCU. Say what you want about the Batman and Robin film, but I've always considered it to be a masterpiece of terribleness. It's one of the worst superhero films ever made, but it somehow manages to also be one of the most entertaining. I'm endlessly fascinated with its existence, and I think I have made my fair share of content on my channel talking about it. I've discussed the PlayStation game, read and reviewed the official comic adaptation, and in the next few months I'm going to be discussing it in a podcast. Lucky for me. This has been NerdGasm. If you enjoyed the video, make sure to hit that subscribe button and bell icon to be notified of all future content I release. If you want to have a say in what comic I review next on the channel, head on over to patreon.com/channelNerdgasm and become a $10 patron or above. I want to thank you all very much for watching, and I will see you in the next one.